What's going down, AMD fans? And we are on a cusp of a very exciting new update. 20.7.2 has hit the shores of AMD alongside of a new circumvent of 2004. And boy, do I have a lot of information for y'all. It is crazy to see what is happening nowadays. We're going to be covering the patch notes. We're going to be going over some benchmarks. My name is Mac here at the MacGyver7 channel, and today we're going to be doing some AMD related news. So let's go ahead and cover through what we're going. The score that I have up above, it doesn't seem promising, does it? But I have an explanation, so stay tuned for that. So first things off, I've already seen a few creators already talk about how Death Stranding and its performance on the presets have become a little bit better. They're being a little bit more explicit with the 5700 series and it coming up about 8% on Death Stranding. So this is going to be very explicit to help the Adrenalin drivers versus the optional. So this is definitely, if you're playing Death Stranding, you're noticing issues, and even with some other stuff, which I'll get into later on, why you still should not be using the advanced scheduling or the variable frame rate that Windows has if there's an option. But I'm going to get into that later. Right now, F1 in the 2020 has made a list again for as far as the ultra high presets. 5% better is what they're boasting on this driver that is supposed to be driving it home over the last driver that they had, which was an open beta versus what they were going towards. Hyperscape is an open beta at the certain times for as far what they're doing. So they're going to see a lot of more things. I'm going to be digging more into like what exactly that is. That's something new that they kind of just like scraped across the board. But it is cool that they're adding newer supports for a lot of stuff like that. On top of that situation, for as far as the fixed issues, what they've had with VR, I heard that last week. A lot of people were going like, what's going on with it? AMD bug for as far as the tools and the overloaded availability for the applications failing constantly, even down to the point where the connection portions of Netflix, which is already making the list all too many times. Paper in the engines for as far as the system and the folds for as far as many sometimes for deleted in the Radeon software managers. And this is why I always personally myself tell people just do factory resets when you're doing it. It'll give it the option even if you download it throughout the Radeon toolset. Just make sure you go additional, and then under additional I say factory preset. This time I kept my settings and everything went really smooth. So far so good. I've been recording on this and no issues. So I would definitely recommend right now. It seems like Windows is the troubled kid in this situation. But getting back to where we are with the news for as far as what we're covering, we have a lot of situations that go inside of there for as far as the gaming tab not working in the Hyperscape may experience some situations on Windows 7. On top of that, there is a lot new of the known issues that have been the flickering screen for the V9, which is basically what your browser user is going to be utilizing during the situation, but it seems like it's explicit to the 5000 series, but a lot of these things do come into gameplay too with the browser source. So always try another browser, sometimes that actually will work. Black screens occurring for as far as the game link and configuration and the enhanced sync, down to the metric overlays, HDR, audio experiencing, YouTube playback, on top of modifying the HDMI scaling sliders down to a lock 30, and then the AMD investigating into the isolation reports inside of the hang-ups inside of the 3000 series and the mobile processors. Some of the exhibiting portions for the 5000 series, and AMD is continuing to monitor all that other fun stuff. Now all the footnotes down below will be directly inside of there, but I want to go ahead and get to the benchmarks because I kind of feel like that's a really important thing right now, because most people by the time they're watching this video, they're probably asking, should I start downloading this massive update? So let's go over some facts. If you are rocking 20.7.1 and you've updated your Windows, you're going to be happy. It's not the best in the world, but if you just use the variable frame rate, it will actually play really well with it. I actually had some scores, which we'll be going over in a little bit. But I'm just saying, if people have already installed that and they got the circumvent, and then 20.7.1 is for you. Unless you're playing Death Stranding, then maybe go to the 20.7.2. But I noticed that Windows, basically what's ended up happening, they're like that person that shows up late to a party. And you're packing up, you're already got the Uber on the way, and they show up with a 20 pace of like beer or something like that. And they're like, ah! And they're like, dude, the party's over. You should have been here. I'm sorry. It was nice to see you, but I'll see you next time. And you bounce. That's basically what Windows been doing to AMD and NVIDIA, is they continue to release late drivers, and that's the issue right here. My tests consistently throughout time and time again have proven that the Windows update, after they circumvent it with an older patch, which basically means the current driver, like 20.7.1, will work and is perform, which means that Windows is putting out sloppy work, relying on AMD to take the farta, on top of that, NVIDIA as well, and then they try to adjust it to basically be, oh yeah, look at that, and most people just think that it's AMD or NVIDIA being shitty, when it's not. In fact, it's actually Windows being horrible with the way that they're addressing their driver support. If you're not going to release something, don't release it at all, or at least collaborate with the companies and do a right job, especially if AMD is basically boasting that you guys have your hands on this to test it, and then this is the sloppy work you have. So let's get into the benchmarks and talk about the fun numbers. First and foremost, I wanted to answer a question that had been asked a long time ago, and this happened by mistake when I was testing. Will your graphics be affected if you have the Radeon software open? And this means it's an open tab, something that's completely there, not on the side where it's on the bottom where you can see it's active, but it's not open as like a tab, like a browser tab. When it is open in a tab, what you'll see to the left, to the right is going to be the difference in the shades of what ends up occurring. So with it open is the right. With it closed and it just doing its thing, with it still running in the background, so that means don't close it, you need that to be running, you literally gain about 200. So if you're messing with your graphics and trying to overclock it and you leave that open by mistake, you're gonna lose some points. But I thought that would be a fun one to share because I get it. But let's go to this week's test. So we have a few tests that are going to be to the right and to the left. When we look at the one that is on the right, it's actually surprising that it beats the one on the left, considering that the one on the left is everything clicked off and it running optimal, which is pretty good. Now, the reason why it's beating it right there is what I started to play around with, which is the variable refresh rate that it has, and it actually works really decent with the 20.7.1 without the accelerator on. If you have that option, it actually may work and it's stable. Now, if you have the same option where advanced scheduling is directly on, and you have the refresh rate, you're going to drop down drastically. It's actually very apparent, and that's why I'm like, dude, advanced scheduling is just trash right now with the current AMD driver because Windows is not putting out good fresh drivers. Now with the same score on the left, which is our non-anything, and our score with the advanced scheduling on and the fresh rate on there, it tanks so bad. I mean, we lose about 300 points. That's worse than having a browser tab open at that point in time. But it's not as bad as last week's, where it dropped down 1,000. But there's more. Now, with Directx 11 being the 1080p portion of what we're testing right here at this portion in time, we can see that the 20.7.1 versus the 20.7.2 bare bones, no added stuff from Windows, is not that bad. There is a little bit of a reduction, but as I said before, Directx 11 in the very bottom portion with a good GPU, you can see those fluctuating scores. So I'm not horribly worried about that, especially if they could dial in more performance for certain games that people were talking about, like saying, hey, you know, this wasn't working, and especially with them going hard on Death Stranding, and then you got your F1 going around the corners at higher FPS rates, you're gonna see some serious stuff. But let's go ahead and take a look and a peek at what ends up happening when you have it on. Everything on. And this is what exactly happened last week, was basically we saw a reduction where there was things like just completely tanking, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's the difference here? And the only difference was Windows circumvented, and before I updated, I tested, which I always do, and it showed the difference, that Windows was not ready for 20.7.2. So I don't understand what their deal is, but they really need to pull their stuff together because these scores are horrible. I mean, I would be so pissed if I was getting this kind of performance drop. I would be like, dude, this is not good. But again, look at this. The one I just click over is advanced scheduling off, variable refresh rate on if you have that option in Windows, and it basically performs decent. It's not horrible, but it's decent. So again, I wouldn't suggest doing that on the 20.7.2 because one thing I did notice when I was testing it is it locked up on me like once or twice, where I was just like, whoa, what's going on here? I literally had to reset my computer because when it was trying to do the Firestrike test, it just literally just blanked out. It was just like, and I was like, that's not normal. And then I rebooted it and it started again. So the variable refresh rate could have variable errors right now in the current driver. So I would not suggest it. Honestly, I would say right now your sweet spot is probably the 20.7.1. You can try 20.7.2, but if you have issues, go back, update your Windows, and you should be fine. So it is good to circumvent with, they play nice together in tandem. 20.7.1 with the new circumvent, they play decent. So I was not super unimpressed with it, but I wasn't super impressed with it. It was just kind of like, that's all right. So let's look at the other scores. So this is where you start to see a little bit more of the bare bones, where since you already got the illustration that 20.7.2 is a good driver, but it's not met with Windows yet, it's kind of like one of those things, well, why should I update? Well, these are the reasons why. if you were looking for certain things in more higher performance with the extreme, so we're looking at a heavy preset on your 1080p, then yeah, you're probably going to see some decent improvements in stability with going to the 20.7.2, provided you do not circumvent an update. Otherwise, you're going to deal with a hot mess. And if you do that, I mean, at least make sure that your advanced scheduling is off and your variable fresh rate is off, and you should have decent gameplay. It shouldn't be that much of an issue. But if not, leave a comment down below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. But moving on to the next portion and round of the Ultra, and AMD continues the trend of killing it at this portion in time. Even if it's a minute portion in acceleration, with 4K it's so hardcore that the minute amount of movement actually is pretty impressive. And not as impressive as last week's, but they're still moving forward. So I can say that, I mean, honestly, if your game is high presets and graphics on DirectX 11, you're going to be cool with this as long as you don't mess with Windows. So, but I'm sure the next circumvent's going to be pretty cool. They have to be. Now, DirectX 12 was not a big improvement. As we bring it a little closer, you can kind of see that it falls behind roughly about 17 points. But again, this is 1080p. They're aiming for stability on a lot of things, and especially with now the ultimate version of other things coming out for DirectX 12, I'm not too bothered by this, to be honest. There's growing room from this. It's not like 100 points or 1,000 points like we're seeing with DirectX 11, where you're going drop-jawed like, what the heck, man? And the trend continues with DirectX 12 for as far as a little bit of reduction, and it is not heavy, not bad. So what I'm going to leave you guys and gals is, A, thanks for the suggestion with the audio last week. I appreciate that, and I noticed it too. OBS updated and Windows updated at the same time, and they weren't in sync yet again. Windows plays tricks. So if you are a streamer and you've been noticing audio issues, after every circumvent, Windows does readjust your audio. It's annoying, but it happens. And I'm just lucky to have a really good community and new people coming to tell me. So cheers. But you can see it's not just graphics drivers that Windows messes with. But long story short, I think 20.7 is too. It's worthy to install, but there is going to be some fallouts if you are going for certain niches in that situation. And like I've illustrated before, don't mess with advanced scheduling, don't mess with the variable fresh rate. Variable fresh rate may look appealing on 20.7.2, but you will run into variable errors. I feel like you'll be sitting there and all of a sudden you'll get a game crash or something's gonna randomly happen, and it would suck if that killed your KDR. But anyways, everyone, I really appreciate the time you guys and gals have spent here, and all those affiliate links you guys and gals have been hitting up. Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. Just shopping and doing your thing and helping me out as a creator. I appreciate that, because any of the links down below, if you click, it portals you through Amazon. If you're shopping through Amazon, you help your great creators that are out there. And it doesn't have to be just me. It could be like Gaming Nexus or UFD Tech and all these other really cool people that are out there that, you know, are just doing their thing on YouTube. So thank you so much for being a viewer. I'll see you guys and gals in the near future. And if you subscribe today, who knows, maybe they'll come out with a neon trident that's like Optimus Prime color. I would still buy that. That would be so cool. Why don't they have Transformer RAM? That should be a thing. Anyways, everyone, stay classy, stay safe, and I'll see you guys and gals in the near future. And if you guys and gals are cool with traveling, I'm gonna be doing some cool across the country USA things, so look forward to those kind of cool uploads. I might do some national landmarks, because doing a cool business trip. So I'll tell you guys and gals when it gets close to there. Stay tuned, stay classy, and I'll see you there.